I also thought I'd take this opportunity to make a 4-module piece using 4 different bases as an experiment to see how they compare with each other. Now, for all of the bases, I have got a palm leaf tree base and a compostable bag to line it with. Now, I'm not going to add the flowers until tomorrow, because part of the test is going to be how much they leak, if they make the base flimsy and soft, and sort of how good they are at retaining the moisture in this little tray. Now, the first one I'm going to do is the Old Faithful moss. Now, the good thing about moss is that you can basically make it any size you want. So I've got quite a square oblong piece. Of the moss has been, thoroughly wetted, and basically I'm going to pull over. Now I could do this without adding over the compostable bag, but I just think it gives it a bit more density and security if the bag is on it. So tie it with twine. As with most things, when you add something in a compostable bag like this, you will need to probably use a skewer or bradawl to make holes in. So package it up like this. Put a bit more twine across. I never get the right amount. It's either too much or too little. Now, although this moss was soaked in water, to make sure it was thoroughly wet, I'd have to say that it doesn't feel overly heavy, which might mean it isn't containing as much water as some of the other options. Now I've got my faithful Uno cards, and this is going to be number 1. So we can follow the progress of number 1. Now, the second option is the quickest by far, and that is Agrawall. Now, the water does tend to perhaps not stay throughout the whole base equally, so I always soak it and put it upside down, and then put it in like this. As you can see, I've sliced off the corner pieces at the end so that it fits nicely into the tray. Again, put some twine around it. I do like to have it not quite in the centre if possible, because I think that helps when you're adding in foliage later, because obviously I like to have something bigger in the middle. So you can see that is a lot quicker to do, and doesn't need to go in the compostable bag itself. You can put it directly into the Agrawall. That will be number 2. Now, the third option is a new product, well, a new substance to me, and this is aspen sawdust. Now this is used in reptile beds. I think it's to soak up wee and stuff. Anyway, it clumps. And when you make a hole in it, the hole stays in it. So this is going to be an experiment for me to see how well this works. Now what I did with this was I wet it and then I put it in this contraption, which I bought years ago to make bricks for the chimney out of shredded paper. So basically I shoved it in there and then put this down and made a brick. Which I wrapped in faithful old compostable bin bag. Now, I do know that this actually isn't quite so absorbent as some of the other methods that I've used. So I've got an extra layer in this tray. I think people call it cool wool. It's the sort of stuff that if you've got HelloFresh or some food that's refrigerated and delivered to you, it comes insulated with this stuff in it. So I think that would be a good way of absorbing any extra moisture. And luckily for me, that brick is the right size for these trays. So I've already actually tied on the compostable bag of this one, but I just want to tie it to the tray. I'd say, obviously, of all of the ideas, this one you would have to prepare in advance. You couldn't just do it on the day, I don't think. I think you want to make your brick in advance. Okay, so that's number 3. Yeah, not sure about this one, we'll have to see. And the final one is quite exciting for me because this is the very new Ocean pouch. Now, this came in a very, very light bag. And basically, it's full of something. No doubt I'll open it afterwards to see what it is. Almost felt like a bean bag, something very dry and very rustly inside it. And it said you had to poke it 10 to 12 times each side with a skewer, soak it in water for 3 to 4 minutes, and then you can use it. Now, this feels really heavy now, so I feel like it has taken up a lot of water. Probably would want it a little bit bigger, but for these trays, but this is the only size to do them in. I think at the moment the price is quite expensive per pouch. But like with all things, if it takes on, hopefully the unit price will come down. Tied on. So there we have the 4th option. Now that's really interesting because number 4, the skewer went in really easily. Number 3, no, not so much. I'm used to using number 2. Number 1, you just have to make the popping sound so you get through the compostable bag. So I'm going to leave those till tomorrow and then see how much water's seeped out, or if it's all been contained, and then I'm going to create the same type of flowers in each module, and then we can compare them. So this is day 2 of 4 modules in 4 ways. I left these overnight to see how the bases look. I'd say that the moss feels quite dry. The Agrawall is still very wet and feels very heavy, full of water. The Aspen is in between, although it hasn't leaked, which is great. And the Ocean Pouch still feels very full of water. So these two seem to contain the most amount of water, but we'll see. Now, for this stage, I've got a random selection of foliage. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put random leaves in to see how well they go into different substrate. And then I'm actually going to come off camera, do them all properly, and then come back when I add in the flowers, and we'll see how the flowers go in. So first of all, I've got the same foliage for each thing. So now I'm expecting that the Pittosporum will go in quite easily. Like that. Pittosporum in each one. That went in nicely. And I expect that to, oh, that went in nicely too. Right, next up we'll do some Photinia. Straight in. Again, straight in. Straight in. And again, straight in. Right, now I've got some Schwarzia. These have all got different types of thickness of stem and softness of stem. So that's going to break. Made the hole. It's a massive piece, isn't it? This surface, look, I thought it would be quite difficult to get into, and it's not at all. This is the Old Faithful privet. Again, this is going in really nicely. Definitely the hardest to get into, the Aspen. Agrawall sometimes tends to make a bigger hole than you expect it to make. Then we've got some hydrangea. Yeah, that's not going in very well at all actually. Thicker stems here. I think if I don't make a hole first, it would just make a massive hole in the Agrawall. I haven't even tried this one. I can't even think that this will go in. Now, I'm making holes in this, but with these it feels like you make a hole and then it sort of like seeps around the flower, whereas that, I feel like the hole's there and the flower's just popped in it. So we'll see how it all lasts. It's not a very straight end, that one. Hydrangea. And then finally I have some mint. Find them here. Okay, well that's a foliage test. See how easy it is to go in. I'd have to say that the Ocean Pouch wins hands down. It was very easy for all sorts of thickness and softness of stems to go into. The Aspen was by far the most difficult. The Agrawal, the thinner, harder stems absolutely fine, but the softer, bigger stems, you can see that you're going to make a big hole with it unless you make a hole first. And again, the softer stems, you definitely have to make a hole first. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to make these all properly as if they were actual modules, and then I'll come back and add the flowers and see how that compares. Okay, so I've added more foliage to the 4 different types of modules. Not as much as I usually would do if I was doing modules for a funeral, because I think it's important that you see how easy it is to get the flowers into each of the different bases. Now I've got the same mix of flowers for each one. Now as I was adding more foliage, the Ocean Pouch was by far the easiest. The Aspen Sawdust was the hardest, and the Agrawal and the Moss were about the same. So I'm going to start adding some flowers. Now these have all got different stem lengths, different stem types, and this isn't how I'd normally do funeral flowers to show them in, but the purpose of this is to see how easy it is to add the flowers to each of the different bases, and also I'm going to check on them every now and then over the days to see how long each of the flowers lasts, if they last longer in one type of material than the others. So I've got a big mix of flowers. Wouldn't usually do this. Now some of these are going into the moss without having to make holes first. I broke that one as I was putting it in. Beautiful sweet peas. Never have they been so late. I broke that one too. So let's make a hole. Veronica. They just literally put in willy-nilly so that I can take some photographs over the coming days to see how everything holds up or doesn't. I suppose really, if you're doing funeral flowers, do they need to last a long time? But on the other hand, if I'm doing modules, and the reason I'm doing modules is that I'm expecting families to take the flowers home, then they need to last. I mean, I have had families letting me know that the flowers have lasted over a week, which is lovely to hear. But I definitely have got a big mix of flowers here. Will that go in? Yes, it will. That's definitely not going to go in without making a hole first. The problem with making a hole through a compostable bag is that where the hole in the bag is isn't always where the hole in the moss is on the other side, if that makes sense. rest of the Cosmos. Okay, so that's the first one done. That's the moss. Now, let's have a look. That feels very light, so I'm not convinced about how much water is in there. Now this is the aqua wool, and I'd have to say that of all of the bases, this one is the wettest. This has actually lost its integrity quite a lot. It will stay together because it's got the string around it. But I don't know if I didn't do as good a job as usual or what, but it's very flimsy, and I think that, yeah, I'm not particularly happy about that. Not sure how that's going to improve. And I do expect a lot of these stems to go in quite easily. She says, as that one breaks. Nice. For some reason the aqua wool isn't as good as it usually is. It seems to be not going quite so well. Trying to make more holes than usual. It's a nice firm stem to go in. Oops, expect this will go in well. That's another firm one. That looks stupid there. I know it's just a test, but even so. Yeah, about the same as usual. A couple of them have made big holes. But there we go. This one feels very heavy, so oh, that's fallen out. So clearly has lots of water still in the block of aqua wool. So pros and cons. Let me use that there. I get this one. Right, this is the aspen. Which I'm happy to have tried, but I don't think it's going to be a game changer. That's actually gone in without making a hole, but I can't imagine that much else will. Oh no, that one's gone in. go in, but they don't go in very far. See, that's just broke the stem. Broken the stem. I think if you do decide to try one of these alternative substrates, then you will know which flowers work with your chosen substrate. So you might have to make some choices about what you can and can't use. But you know, cards getting on the nerves. No, I thought that might go in, but it hasn't. I think that's gone in far enough for it actually to get much water. The whole point is for comparison. Yes, so that's that one. Some space. And finally, we have the Often pouch. Lovely. Definitely like this the best. Not sure that I made any holes with this so far. I think everything's gone in. really is nice. £8 a bag though. Okay, I think that's our 4. So, I've got the mushroom pouch. Probably find out I'm saying that completely wrong. Then the aspen sawdust, then the aqua wool, and then the moss. This is now 48 hours since I did the initial experiment and put the flowers and foliage into the 4 different bases. So I've come back to compare to see how they've all held up. And in 4th place is definitely the aspen sawdust. Most of the flowers and foliage have died. It was difficult to use. So this is not the wonder solution that I was hoping for. So I won't be trying that again. So that one's out the window. In 3rd place, it would have to be the moss. Now, is that because it wasn't wet enough? But even so, it's quite difficult to set the stems in because you have to use a compostable bag. You're making holes every time. And quite a few of the stuff has wilted away. Now, if you can gather your own moss from your own garden, then that's definitely worth pursuing. I don't have that option. I have to buy mine in. I have to make sure it's from a sustainable source. So I will use moss in certain occasions, but I don't feel like it's the best one for the flowers. Now, 1st and 2nd place has to go between the aqua wool and the ocean pouch. Now, the foliage has stood up really well, but the flowers have lasted better in the aqua wool. Definitely, in fact. I've got sweet peas here that are still looking nice and pert, whereas on this one, they're looking quite dead. In actual fact, quite a few of them. And here I've got some, was that Sweet Rocket? And that's completely wilted, whereas here, it's still looking nice and pert as well. The downside of this is that the base has lost a bit of its integrity with the water seeping out of the aqua wool. Clearly, if I could find a better way of keeping the water in to the base, that would solve the problem. Although I did really, really enjoy using the ocean pouch. The skin that it's got over it is so easy to penetrate that it was a pleasure to use. I really liked it. But as far as keeping the flowers fresh, it would have to be the aqua wool. One of the reasons for this experiment was I keep looking for the perfect solution, which doesn't exist yet. So if you find it and you're experimenting, then please share. I hope you found it interesting. Give it a go yourself.